You've tuned into this video if you're looking for a 24-70, 25-78 2.8 lens. It's kind of the all-purpose lens, and today we're comparing the Nikon 24-70 with the Tamron's newest offering of 28-75. Yes, that's correct. So that focal range means you get 47mm out of the Tamron and you only get 46mm out of the Nikon. And if you're like, hang on, the standard's 24-70. I know it is. Well, this is what you get when you put the two together against each other. And this is what they extend to when you put the two next to each other. And honestly, whether it's 28 or 24 feels like it's not a great deal of difference. And 75-70 again doesn't feel like it's a great deal of difference. Why did they do it? I don't know. Like, let's do something different and change the industry. Nah. Neither lens has vibration reduction, relies on the camera body. That's why it says in-camera stabilization. That's the stabilization your body brings to the lenses, so keep that in mind. Minimum focusing distance sets these lenses like apart. The Nikon has 38 centimeters. That means there's 38 centimeters from this to when an object is in focus. So you go closer and it gets out of focus, right? That means the magnification on this is has a certain limitation, but you flip it around, the Tamron has all the way through to 18 centimeters or 7.1 inches. So it is super close. And because of that, you can get a magnification of 1 to 2.7. It means it almost turns this lens into a macro. So if you wanted to play around with a bit of macro photography, you don't want to buy a macro lens. You want to get real close to stuff that you're shooting at 28mm, and that's where you get your minimum focusing distance from. If you go extend it out to 75, you have to actually pull further away, but not a great deal further away, and certainly less distance than you do with the Nikon. They are the same length pretty much when they're compacted. When they expand, they expand to said length. So the Nikon expands bigger. It's a bigger lens. It's a heavier lens. The Nikon is 805 grams or 28.4 ounces versus the Tamron, which is 540 grams and 19 ounces. So the Tamron is easier to carry around with you when you're doing different jobs and you've got it in your bag and you're doing, it's smaller, it's lighter, has the same speed. The question you're asking is, what about quality? We'll get to quality at the end of this video. Just hold tight until we get there. Filter length, we have 82 on the Nikon and we have 67 on the Tamron. That means the filter that you can screw in. 67 is quite small, and honestly 82 is a tiny bit big. I'm a 77 man, but you know, you go with what you've got. The cost of these lenses is quite dramatic. The Nikon is $2,397. The Tamron is a smidge under 1,000, 999. Yes, so there's a dramatic price difference. This is more than twice the price, significantly more than twice the price. So the question is, do you get bang for your buck? What do you get in this that you don't get in this? Or has Tamron pulled the monkey out of the hat? I just made that one up. A rabbit out of the hat? Pigeon? Dove out of the hat? Pulled off a miraculous feat of making just as good a quality optical lens as Nikon for less than half the price, but with all the bells and whistles. So when we look externally, both lenses have two rings. The Nikon has its ring for focal length closest to the camera, and it's quite a narrow band. And then just slightly smaller is the focus ring at the top, the focus band at the top closest to the end of the lens and the outside world. The Tamron has a real thick focal length ring right at the end, which is quite easy to grasp, and you know when you've got it. There's a difference between the two. This is half the length of this, so you know when you've got hold of it. It's quite easy. I find with the Nikon sometimes you would be changing focal length and instead you'd be refocusing the camera instead of doing that. So that's kind of I think it's more helpful. Points go to Tamron on this, and then it's got its focal ring just in here, which is good because when you hold a camera, the thing you're going to mostly use it for is changing your focal length over and above the focus focusing. And so when you hold this, you're naturally holding on the grip of the focal length rather than on the focusing ring on the Nikon. Both lenses, they look beautiful, they feel nice in the hand, but when you look on the outside, they're both well made. A mixture of metal and plastic. And I think Tamron saved their weight on plastic. So it's plastic built, but there's still a lot of weight in it, which means there's a lot of good glass in it, which means the quality photograph you're going to get out of them is top notch. On the external gizmos and buttons and stuff, the Tamron is limited. It has a USB-C, which you can plug into the Tamron lens firmware update and calibrator, which you can plug straight in, and then it just has one button that locks your focus. So you can lock your focus and you can turn it into a manual lens by holding that down and moving your focus ring accordingly. And once you release, it then goes back to autofocus. Nikon, hold on to your horses. It's got a display that if you click on this, you can tell what focal length it is, you can tell what aperture it is, you can tell a variety of other things just by clicking on this and going through. Fantastic little option. I do love this. I have used this several times, especially when you want to get really specific about some things, or you're at night and you want to know what your lens is doing because you can't see what's going on. That little button, display button, is fantastic. And then you have a lock function button. So depending on the function that you have access to this for, you can lock it in, just like you can lock in the focus on this. Also has, and that's what the Tamron is missing, the Nikon has the auto focus and the manual focus. So you just click that over, manual focus, click it back, auto focus. And then it has another ring here. See, it has another ring, and that other ring allows you to do a variety of things depending on what you set it. So you can set this as your aperture ring if you choose, and just change your aperture by using the lens. So they're the main external differences about these two lenses. But what you're really asking is, well, how does it go in terms of speed of focus? And also, how do they go in terms of quality of photograph? Are there blurriness in the corners? Is there much vignetting? What focal length do they operate best at? Have they got a bigger range of where the lenses best perform? I'm going to put both these on the Z5. Now this is what both lenses look like on the Z5 next to each other. So you can see actually how big they are and what they look like. I'm going to put it on the Z5 because Z5 is kind of the least performing full frame camera. Like I could put it on my Z8, but you wouldn't get a real good feel for the lens because the processor and the speed of the Z8 is kind of nuts. So we're going to put it on the Z5 and put it through its paces next to each other, and I'll talk you through those results to see which one you think is for you. Now here are the images. I set them all up on a tripod with a 2-second timer, so there was no chance of any deviation or shake in the camera. The ones in red down the bottom I shot on the Nikon, and the ones that you'll see shortly are on the Tamron. They're in yellow. So if we view at 100%, and if you look over here, it's 24mm at 2.8. So keep an eye on this box and these details here. So at 2.8 we've got a narrow depth of field, which means the corners and that which is closer will be blurry, but up here that's still quite sharp. So let's go to 35mm at 2.8, that's sharp. 50mm at 2.8, go right to the corners, it's pretty sharp. 70mm at 2.8, again zoom up into the corners, starting to see a little bit of blur, but it's not too bad. Like, that's the center of the shot, so it does lose a little bit, but not a great deal. Now let's reset to the widest function of 24mm at an aperture of 5 and zoom into 100%, and that's looking really good. And we scoot up into the corners, that's not too bad. All this is chromatic aberration, and so you lose it because of the light. But if you look here, the detail's really good. We go over to 35mm, detail's not too bad. If we go to the center, maybe a little bit hazy at 35mm at 5. Then we go, that's really clean and crisp. That's at 50 or 51mm at aperture of 5. Corners are nice and sharp. Let's go to 70mm at f5. Corners are sharp. 24mm at 9 now, so we zoom into the middle at 100%. That's nice and clean and sharp, and you would expect as we get to these sort of focal lengths and aperture ranges that it should have pretty sharp results until we get to aperture of 22. and then it might all turn to rubbish, but we'll see how we go. So that's 35mm at 9. This is 50mm at 9, and 9 is its ultimate aperture range, so you want the best from this lens. Shoot on 9 if you can. Now we go out to 24mm and f16, and it's still holding that, and we should be able to come down here, and that's in nice and focused too, because the field of view has been expanded quite significantly, so that's looking really good. And in fact, if we zoom in on that, let's go 35mm at f16, still nice. This is 50mm at f16. This is 70mm at f16, looks really good. And when it starts to turn to rubbish is at f22, which is most lenses. So that's actually okay. If we go in more though, look out, that's just loses all its definition. So important to keep in mind. And f22 just does that with every lens because of light diffraction. So it looks okay like this, but you zoom in on any part of this quite significantly, and you just lose the detail and the character of the shot. That's the same on both lenses with f22. All right, let's flip over now to the Tamron, and we're starting at 28mm at 2.8. It looks really clean and crisp and clear. Zoom into 100%. That's 100%, nice and clear. Let's just have a look in the corner. See again, it's about depth of field, which gets this out of focus because it's such a narrow depth of field for the Tamron lens. Up here, that's pretty good. It's pretty clean. So let's go to 35mm at 2.8, 51mm, 75mm. It's pretty sharp, right? So we've got 28mm at 5. We go to 35mm at 5. Going to go up here. See the quality of this lens at an f-stop at 5 at 35mm is really clean and crisp. Now watch what happens when we go to 50mm and I go into 100. It starts to get a little bit muddy. See that? Starts to get a little bit muddy at f-stop of 5 and 50mm. We're then going to go to 75, clears up. So 50mm is a bit of a weakness, but if it's on the shorter range or the wider range of the lens, it's actually quite sharp. 28mm at 9. If we go up here into the corner, it's looking good. It's nice and sharp. Again, 35mm at 9. See, a little bit fuzzy. A little bit fuzzy on the corners at 35mm at 9. We go to 50mm at 9. See, at 9, that's not too bad. That's quite sharp. And again, 9 is a sweet spot of this lens. Go along to 75, and that's looking pretty good. It's zoomed in, very nice. This is f-stop of 16 at 28mm. And if we go to the corners, that should be pretty good. If we come down the front, because the depth of view has increased, this is now looking really nice. This is 35mm at 16. You can see the details on the leaves there. Again, if we push up here, should be nice and sharp in the middle. I go over to 50mm at 16. That's looking pretty good. Look at that. It's nice, isn't it? It's good with this landscape. You can see the detail in a variety of situations. This is 75mm at 16. Go right down here. It's yeah, in the middle that's good. Toward the edges, feels like it just fades a little bit, gets a little bit mushy, a little bit blurry. Maybe I'm being too picky. 28mm at f22, so if we zoom in and we go much in, it's the same as the Nikon. It's because of light diffraction, so holding a lens at any quality at 22 is just useless. And if we just scoot through these, you'll see exactly what I mean. And again, it's okay. Everything's generally in the same field of view, so it's all like sort of the same quality, not banging, but you really want to shoot on a maximum f-stop of f18. I'd recommend, and f20 if you absolutely must, to get the best quality images. So there you go, bit of a run through of this lens, and as you can see, the differences between the Tamron and the Nikon are so small that basically I feel like you get as good a quality image out of the Tamron as you do out of the Nikon. And I probably just need to say that also Nikon have a 28 to 75mm 2.8 that they sell for about $1,000, which is on par with the Tamron, but I've no idea. I haven't used it because I don't have the money to buy it. If anyone wants to send it to me, I can give it a bit of a review for you. Well, there you go, guys. Both these epic lenses. What do you reckon? I'll leave you to make the decision, but I'd love to hear what you're thinking down in the comments below. I'm really excited that Tamron sent me this. I've got to send it back. So they just lent it, which is beautiful because I can say anything I like about it, right? There's no kind of buy-in, but thanks Tamron for this. I own this because I wanted a really high quality, fast lens that did everything, kind of an all-purpose, so I bought this. Would I have bought this, the Tamron, instead of the Nikon? Well, between you and I, if you stuck around this long, absolutely I'll buy the Tamron over the Nikon, because the cost that you save and the gains that you miss out on, Tamron all the way, baby. Well done, Tamron. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope this review's been helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.